Hello everyone. In this module, we are going to learn about subplots in Matplotlib, and following are the topics that we are going to discuss. Firstly, we will see glimpses to Matplotlib objects. After that, we will learn what is object-oriented Matplotlib. Then we will see an example related to object-oriented Matplotlib. After that, we will learn about the figure function, and in last, we will learn to create subplots. So before I tell you how to create Matplotlib subplots, let's go through which Matplotlib objects make up a figure. Now we will see how objects are nested from higher to lower level. And the first function is figure canvas. It is a figure instance for container class. The next object is figure and it is a container for one or more axis instances in the figure. And the last object is axis. It is nothing but a rectangular area to hold lines, text and so on. So now we will discuss what is object-oriented Matplotlib. In the previous modules, you have seen that we write a piece of a code as plt.plot and in parentheses we pass different parameters to create a line chart. But now we want to transform this code into an object-oriented code. So we write it as line equal to plt.plot and in parentheses we pass different arguments. The first case, in this we use the plot function which return a list of line 2D instances, one for each line. But in the transformed object oriented code, we specify a line as a reference to the line object. So every operation allowed on the line 2D can be performed using this line. You can use any variable name instead of line. Now we will see an example related to object-oriented Matplotlib. Suppose we want to set the line color. So we discuss the different scenarios. In the first case means in the simple case which we have used in the previous examples, we pass the keyword argument color to the plot function. But this method has one disadvantage that the line color can't be changed after the plot call. Now we will see the second scenario which is a object oriented code. So in this we set it using the line dot set underscore color function where the line is the reference name for the object which we used, and this method covers the disadvantage of the above method, which means we can change the color or we can do any customization after the plot call also. Now we will see an important function figure which we will use in upcoming examples. The figure function returns a figure to which one or more axis instances can be added. And the syntax for this function is matplotlib.pyplot.figure and in parentheses we pass different parameters to it. The first parameter is num and the default value is none. The next parameter is a fig size and the default value is none. The other parameter is a DPI and it also has default value as none. The next one is face color. The next is edge color. After that we have frame on parameter and the last one is clear. If we want to change this code or this syntax in an object oriented syntax, we will write it as fig equals to plt.figure where the fig is referred to the figure object and every operation allowed on the figure can be done using this fig. You can use any variable name instead of fig also in this case. So now we will discuss about the parameters of the figure function. The first parameter is a num. It takes value in int or a string format. It is a unique identifier for the figure. The next parameter is a fig size. it take value as a float and it is used to set the width and the height in the inches. The next one is DPI. It take value as a float and it is the resolution of the figure in dots per inches. The next one is face color. It takes value as a color and it is used to set the background color. The next one is edge color. It take value as a color and it is used to set the border color. The next one is frame on. It take value as boolean, which mean either true or false. But if we specify false value, the figure frame is not drawn. And the last one is clear. It also take value as a boolean. If we set it to true, the figure already exists is cleared out. So let's see an example related to figure function first. So here is the code related to a figure function. Firstly, I import the important libraries which are matplotlib.pyplot as plt and numpy as np. After that, I call a figure function and I pass fig size parameter to it and I set 8 inches as a width and 5 inches as a length of the plot. Next, I define data using a random.randint function of a numpy module. I pass low value as a 5, high value as a 50 and a size between 25. Next, I call the plot function to create a line chart. I pass first parameter x as a x, then I pass additional parameters to beautify the plot, which are color and I set it to green, line style and I set it to dashed, and I also pass line width parameter LW and set it to 4. And in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code and here is the output. You can see that this plot appears in a bigger size as compared to the default one. So I will show you the default size. I comment out this line and execute this code, and here you can see that the plot appears in its default size. So by using figure function and passing fixed size parameter to it, we can increase or decrease the size of the figure. Now we will learn to create subplots in Matplotlib. So before we start, firstly I will explain you what is subplot. Subplots are axes that can be found together in a single Matplotlib figure. And to create subplots, we have different ways. So we can use axis function, add axis function, subplot function, add subplot function and subplots function to create it. You can use any of them as per your choice or your need. So let's understand each function in detail. So firstly, we will understand about the axis function. In Matplotlib, the pyplot module provides an axis function that is the most basic method for creating axes, which means plots. And the syntax of this function is matplotlib.pyplot.axis and in parentheses we pass a list of a parameter. The first one is left, the next is bottom, after that is width and the last one is height. If you don't provide any argument, you will only get one plot that covers the full figure. But if you want to add a subplot that exists inside the another axis, then you have to specify these parameters. So let's see an example related to this to clear the concept. So here is the code for creating a subplot using an axis function. So I explain you. Firstly, I import library matplotlib pyplot as plt. After that, I define data coordinate x and y. Then I call a axis function without any argument and I assign axis underscore 1 variable to it. So it creates a plot that covers the full figure. After that, I call axis function again, but this time I pass parameters to it. I pass left, bottom, width and height parameter to it and set its value to 0.20, 0.55, 0.25 and 0.25. After that, I call the plot function with reference to axis underscore 1 to plot a line between x and y. And then I call a plot function again to create a line chart with reference to axis underscore variable 2 and I pass a list of a value 1.15, 3 and 4 to it. After that, I call a set underscore title function to set a title to each plot. So I pass axis underscore 1 and axis underscore 2 as a reference to it. And in last, I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code and you can see that it creates a plot with a subplot inside it. So the first plot is a plot 1 and the plot inside it is a plot 2. So now we will see a next function by using which we can create a subplot. In Matplotlib, the figure module provides an add underscore axis function that is used to add axis or we can say plots to the figure. And the syntax of this function is matplotlib.figure.add underscore axis and in parentheses we pass the list of a parameter. The first parameter is a left, the next one is a bottom, the next one is a width and the next one is a height. Now we will see an example related to this to clear the concept. So here is the code in which we will learn to create a subplot using a add axis function. So firstly I import the necessary libraries matplotlib.pyplot as plt and numpy as np. After that I define data coordinate. For defining x I use arrange function of a numpy module. For defining y1 I use sine function and for defining y2 I use the cos function. After that I call a figure function without any argument and I assign fig variable to it. Then I create a subplot by using add underscore axis function. So in the first case I assign left value as 1, bottom value as 1, width as 0.5 and height as 1 and I assign axis underscore 1 variable to it. In the next case, I pass 1.5 value as a left, 2 value as a bottom, width value as a 0.75 and the height value as a 1 and I assign axis underscore 2 variable to it. Then I call the plot function to create a line chart and I use the axis underscore 1 reference variable with the first plot function and the axis underscore 2 reference variable with the second plot function and in the first plot function we create a line between x and the y1 and in the second plot I create a line between x and a y2 and in last I call the show function to display the plot and here you can see the output. It creates a subplot with specified height, width, left and bottom values. So now we will discuss the difference between axis function and add underscore axis function. The axis function is of the pyplot module and the add axis function is a part of the figure module. The axis function creates a subplot within the existing plot, but the add axis function creates a subplots within the figure area, not within the plot. So let's see one more function to create a subplot, that is a subplot function. In Matplotlib, the pyplot module provide a subplot function that is used to draw an multiple plots within a one figure and the syntax of this function is matplotlib.pyplot.subplot and in parentheses we pass different parameters. The first one is n rows which means number of rows The second one is n columns, which means number of column. The third one is index, which is index value, and the last one is keyword argument, which means we pass other parameters to modify the or beautify the plot. So let's see an example related to this function. So here is the code where we will learn to create a subplot using a subplot function. So firstly I import the matplotlib.pyplot library as PLT. Then I define data coordinate x and y. After that I call a subplot function and I pass 1 as a row value, 2 as a column value, and I assign 1 as an index value. Then I call the plot function to create a line chart between x and y value, and I assign color blue to it by passing color parameter, and I also pass marker parameter to it to set a marker. After that, I once again call the subplot function to create a second subplot. Now in this case, I pass three values without any commas. So the first value 1 is stand as a row number. The second value 2 stands for a number of column which I assign 2, and the third value 2 is an index value. After that, I call the bar function to create a bar chart between x and y, and I pass color argument to it to change the color of the bars to orange. Then I pass one more function, plt.tight_layout function. It automatically adjusts the plots. It prevents the plots from overlapping. And in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code and you can see that it creates a two plots side by side, one with the line chart and the second with the bars. So I will tell you what this tight layout function does. If I comment out this function and execute the code, you can see that here the y-axis values overlap with the first plot. So with this you can see that this tight_layout function is used to prevent this overlapping. So now we will learn one more function, add_subplot, to create a subplots in Matplotlib. In Matplotlib, the figure module provides an add_subplot function that is used to add axes to the figures as subplots. And the syntax of this function is matplotlib.figure.add_subplot, and in parentheses we pass different parameters. The first one is n rows, the second is n cols, which means number of columns, the next is fignum, and the last one is keyword arguments. Now we will see an example related to this. So here is the code where we will create a subplot using a add_subplot function. So firstly I import the necessary libraries, matplotlib pyplot as plt and numpy as np. After that I define the data coordinates. The first data coordinate x is defined by using a arrange function of a numpy module. The y1 coordinate is x multiplied by x. The y2 coordinate is -1 multiplied by x, and the y3 coordinate is a minus x multiplied by x plus 45. Then I call a figure method and assign fig variable to it, and I also pass fig size parameter to it to set the figure size. Then I draw the first subplot. For this I call the add_subplot function of the fig module, and I pass 2 as a row value, 2 as a column value, and 1 as a fignum value, and I assign axis_1 variable to it, and I use this axis_1 reference to plot a chart between x and y1 value. So I call a plot function and pass x and y1 value to it. After that, to create a second plot, I once again call a add_subplot function, and now this time I pass row value as a 2, column value as a 2, but the fignum value as a 2 instead of a 1, and I assign axis underscore 2 as a variable to it, and I call the plot function with reference to axis underscore 2 variable, and I pass x and y2 as a parameter to create a line chart between x and y2, and in a format string I set color of the line to red, line style as a dash, and marker as a circle. In third time I call add underscore plot function again, but I pass 2 value as a row, 2 value as a column, but pick value as a 4, and I assign axis underscore 3 as a variable to it, and I use this axis underscore 3 reference to create a plot between x and y3, and I again set its color to magenta, its line style to dashed, and marker style to circle. After that, I want to set labels at x-axis and a y-axis. For this, I call x set underscore x label function and pass axis text to it, and I also change its font size to 13. To add a label at a y-axis, I call set underscore y label function and I pass text to it, and I also set its value to 13. But in every case, I call this function with reference to axis underscore 1, axis underscore 2 or axis underscore 3 variable which I define above. And then I call the tight layout function to adjust the plot, and in last I call the show function to display the graph. Now I execute this code and you can see that it creates 3 subplots with labels at the axis. Now let's see one more function to create a subplots, and this function is subplots. In Matplotlib, the pyplot module provides subplots function that is used to create subplots within a figure. And the syntax of this function is matplotlib.pyplot.subplots, and in parentheses we pass different parameters. The first one is number of rows, the second one is number of columns, and the third is keyword arguments. So now we will see example related to this function. So here is the code for creating a subplot using a subplots function. Firstly, I import the necessary libraries. Next, I define data coordinates. For defining x, I use a range function. For defining y1, I use x into x, and for defining y2, I call sine function of a numpy module. After that, I create a subplot. For this, I call a subplots function and I assign fig and axis variable to it as a reference, and I pass 1 as a number of row value and 2 as a number of a column value. Now to create a line chart, I call axis and I pass 0 to it, which means first column, and I pass x and y, one as a parameter to it, and as a format string I pass blue color, line style as a dash, and marker as a circle. Then I call plot function again and I add reference to it axis, and in square braces I pass 1, which means second plot in the first row. So here I pass x as a x value, y2 as a y value, which means it creates a line chart between x and y2, and as a format string I pass k as a color of the line, dashed as a line style, and the marker as a circle. And then I call the tight layout function to auto adjust the plot and to avoid the overlapping, and in last I call the show function to display the plot. Now I execute this code and you can see that it creates a 2 subplots side by side, which means in one row it creates 2 subplots, or we can say that it creates a subplots in 2 columns. Maybe you have noticed that I use a subplot function above. The difference between subplot and subplots function is the function subplot without s is adds only one subplot at a time. So in this case I call subplot function two times as I want two subplots. But when I use the subplots function, the subplot with the s, I call the subplots function only once as it creates multiple plots at a time. For this, I pass row value as a 1 and column value as a 2, and I assign axis to it, and I use this axis variable as a reference. So if we want to create 4 plots, we have to pass 2D array to it. So with this we have learned to create subplots in Matplotlib, and in the next module we will learn to create multiple figures.